So I mentioned a couple of things real quick. We basically, because of our normal tradition of passing the basket during the lectures, we now have learned how to do what they call a virtual basket, and we're trying to figure it out, but we're getting there. Anyway, we have in the chat room, there will be two things, our Venmo address and our PayPal address. So if you want to put something in there, feel free to do so, and that's kind of where we're going with that. Okay, so we're testing it out. We'll see if it works, but if not, don't worry about it. So we'll go. All right. I do want to mention also that the lectures that I've done in the past are on the website under Vince's Corner, and this one will be on tomorrow, we hope. And then also, when I finish this series, I'll be starting a 7-week series on the 12 steps of self-parenting. So we're working on that next. Okay. All right. I want to begin tonight by doing the reading from the For Today book, which is the daily meditation book for Overeaters Anonymous, July 20th. Nature is no spendthrift, but takes the shortest way to her ends. Growth is a phenomenon of nature. I cannot push it, shape it, make it happen. I can only do the footwork, endure the pain, know that the results are not up to me. There is struggle in the growth process. Pride, ego, and misused will stand in the way. It must be overcome gradually. With understanding and compassion. Pain many times is our teacher, but with each period of growth, it becomes less. Growth is the opposite of control. Another term for it is learning to let go and let God. And that is a subject I can only expect to get better at, not master. Do I really need to be in control, which is wasted motion? Really? Or can I just trust in my higher power? I will let today be a wonderful surprise. I wanted to share that reading because we're going to start the second phase of our codependency series tonight. In the first 5 sessions, we concentrated primarily on codependency and what codependency is. And just very quickly, I define codependency as any person, place, or thing that I have built a dependency on that creates unmanageability in my life. And I mentioned that could be a substance, could be a person, could be a situation, could be a family member. The key is dependency and unmanageability. We also went through family systems. We talked about traits and characteristics. And tonight, what I want to do a 4-week series primarily on the recovery process of codependency. And I got to kind of share this with you because I think it's really important. A lot of people come into Starting Point and come to me and they say things like, I want to do inner child work. They don't know what it is, but they want to do it. So I try to explain something to them. To truly do inner child work, to truly get to meet the little child that's inside of you, we basically have to do what I call foundation work first, which means that we have to basically set the groundwork for it. So tonight what I want to do is give you what I call the 6 stages of recovery. Now notice there's stages, and each one takes time to go through because it is a process, it's not an event. The first stage is called education. The second stage is developing a good, healthy support system, or what I call a good, healthy family support system. The third stage is called affirmations, learning how to reprogram myself to think positively. The fourth stage is called self-parenting, learning how to meet my higher parent, how to get in touch with my inner child and my higher parent. The fifth stage is called family of origin work, and the last stage is called the inner child. But notice something. Inner child is number 6, not number 1. There's a process involved in this. And again, I have to emphasize the fact the process I'm talking about is not something that just happens quickly. There's something intellectually you can deal with quickly, but to actually put it into practice and do it has to be done over a period of time. Now, I'll explain that to you as we go along. Because what I want to do tonight is concentrate just on the first 2 stages, education and developing a strong, healthy family system, support system. So we'll talk a lot about education. Because I want to emphasize something. When I talk about codependency in adult children of alcoholics, people coming out of dysfunctional family systems, I basically mention the fact and describe us in the following way. We are like people that are frozen from our nose to our toes. The only part of us that isn't frozen is our head. And so very many times we get very much caught up in our intellect, trying to figure things out, trying to analyze things, trying to figure out why. And as a result, then, very many times we actually put ourselves in more trouble intellectually than we really do in the process of recovery. Also, I would describe us as frozen Kelvinator freezers, pretty and beautiful on the outside and frozen solid on the inside. It's almost like so many of us as codependent adult children know how to function externally, but internally, we don't really have an idea of who we really are. There's an emptiness inside of us. Again, I can relate to this because for the first 44 years of my life, I functioned in a shell. Yeah, I functioned good on the outside. I had an identity. I was a priest. I also had the identity of being able to function, but really inside, I had no idea who I was. And so as a result, then, I have a tendency to function, to perform, to get things done, and people externally think everything's okay. But on the inside, I'm hurting like crazy, or I'm kind of frozen on the inside. I don't know about you, but when you freeze feelings and shut feelings off, they will eventually have an effect on you. And that's why it's so important to learn to go inside in order to be able to get in touch with that. And I share this in my own life also because now I understand what they mean when they talk about the concept of getting in touch with your inner spirit, your spirituality. It's not about religion, but getting in touch with a real sense of who you are as a person. And so many of us don't really know who we are. We know what we do and how to function on the outside, but deep inside, we've never taken time to go look there. Unfortunately, for many of us, because we're empty on the inside, we have a tendency to migrate towards addictions. Because what do I do with addiction? I fill the empty void, I fill the empty hole. I learn to embalm myself. I use different addictions to run away from having to really look at what's really going on inside of me. And so I share this because when I work with codependents and adult children, I work with myself. I realize the fact that many of us are scared. And many of us, for a long period of time, just don't want to look at it. I'm here today, forget about yesterday, I don't want to face it or deal with it. So very many of us have a tendency to want to stay in kind of a make-believe world instead of facing what we have to face. And we do this in a very simple way. We have a tendency very many times, basically because we're scared and because we're afraid, to basically avoid and run away from having to look at things in life. But I understand that. And that's why the first stage is called education. See, for many adults or many codependents, education is safe. And safety is important to us. In education, I can get information, I can figure things out, I can read books, I can go to lectures, I can get information. I never really have to do anything about it. But see, I'm in control. I'm the one that's running the show. I don't have to answer any questions, so literally I can stay in my head, I can analyze everything, I can figure everything out. In short, I can be my own therapist. And as a result, then, I have this sense of feel like I'm in control. But I understand this, because for many of us, we really can't look at the inner self because basically we're stuck with the outer self. It's fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of change. It's fear of feelings. It's fear of having to look at things I do not want to look at. And so as a result, then, I have a tendency to block them out and stay in what I call a safe world. Now, I'm going to share this because I truly do understand this. And that's why for many people, they may not be able to go into a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about in the next weeks. They may have to stay in that denial pattern or that comfortable pattern, as I call it. But I've also learned that people progress and move at their own pace, not at the pace we want them to move. And that's why so many times we got to be careful in doing this work, because we can very easily slide into what I call the victim role. The victim role is that I can look at all the things from my past from a negative perspective and look for people to blame. I am the way I am today because of so-and-so, because of this, because of that. When in reality, it's not really true. And so really, in reality, I got to be able to take the time. And that's why I think it's great. Now, I joke a lot about this stage because I've learned a lot from codependence. So many of us are searching for what I call the quick fix. Find me the magical program that will tell me what to do, figure everything out, get everything done by midnight. See, because I want to be in charge of it. That's why codependents love books. They love all kinds of things. They love information. They love all this stuff because I'm in charge. I still have that sense of control. And I know when you've gone through childhood situations where you've been out of control, then very basically, you don't want to feel that anymore or deal with that anymore. So sometimes not to deal with those feelings, it's much easier just to stay in your little world and to avoid. And look at that because that's okay. Because maybe that's the way people get through life. We all got to find our own way. Give you an example. I know a lady who came to my lectures for 3 years. And she basically was very faithful, was always there. And then one day she came up to me and she says, I've been coming to this stuff for 3 years. I think maybe it might be time for me to try the second stage. Maybe it took her that long to get there. I don't know. And even when they get to that second stage, they get scared because it means I have to be able to move out of my comfort zone and interconnect with other individuals and other people. I don't know about you, but so many of us, myself included, I like that comfort zone because there I don't have to feel or deal with stuff. It's much easier. In fact, I joke, I said, when God created us, he should have made our heads removable so I could take it off and stick it in the freezer at night and pick it up in the morning. I don't have to think. I don't have to feel. I don't have to do with anything or deal with anything. But they're not removable, I'm sorry. And so you have to deal with it. And yet, intellectually, it's a lot safer. That's why I always say there's a difference between what I call intellectual recovery and what I call gut recovery. Intellectual recovery is safe and necessary for very many people because it simply means I'm not ready. Now, I'll tell you another story. For years, I ran groups, codependency groups, and I took people through this whole process. And I'm just relating back to a women's group I ran one time, and this lady was in the group. She lived in Cherry Hill, and she would come every day, pay her fee, and she would come to the group. In the first week, people went around giving introductions and telling stuff about themselves. She said nothing. They came to her, she said, I pass. The second week, came in again, she paid her fee, said nothing. The third week she came in, did the exact same thing. The group came to me after the session and said, Vince, what are we going to do? We got to get her to be part of the group. Shall we go talk to her? I said, do me a favor. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. Let her work on her own time. Thank God she's still coming. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If you try to go after her and force her to open up, she's going to run out the front door because she's scared. And after 5 weeks, finally, she began to speak, she began to share, she began to open up. But I know what she was doing. She was scared. She had this fear inside of her. She was going to check everybody out and see if she was comfortable enough to take that step. And it took her 5 sessions to finally unlock the door. That is the hard thing for us to do sometimes. Because I don't know about you, but many of us, myself included, I don't want to have to feel that insecurity or feel that hurt, feel those feelings. It's much easier just to kind of go with the flow and keep doing the things that you're doing and survive and get through life. I told you in the first sessions, so many codependents, we are survivors, not thrivers. We function and get through life. And the biggest enemy we have are 2 things. Fear. and control. They literally shut us down and close us off. I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live having to make sure I'm in control. I got to have everything the way I want it to be all the time. And that's where the expectation thing comes into play. I love adult children and codependents because they have a tendency very many times when they come to therapy to want to know how the therapy is going to work out before they start. Because they have their guidelines for how they want this thing to work. Now, if I do all this stuff, will I be able to be okay at the end? They want the ending before they have the starting. And again, it's because I literally don't want to go through anything again. I don't want to feel anything again. I want to go through changes. And I really believe in safety. And I believe that we have to work at our own pace and feel safe until we're ready to do things we have to do. But eventually we pray and we hope you'll get into the second stage, which is building a strong recovery family, a strong support system. So I'm going to be honest with you. You really can't progress in the recovery process if you try to do it all by yourself. You need to be interconnected with other individuals and other people. We need one another. Maybe not a lot of people, but at least people that we feel safe with, we feel comfortable with. And that takes time for us to form that. We do have meetings today. We have Codependency Anonymous meetings. We have Adult Children of Alcoholics meetings. We have Families Anonymous. We have Al-Anon meetings, Nar-Anon meetings. We have all kinds of support groups that many of us can jump into. But again, so many of us, and here's another thing I find amazing. Many times codependents go to these support groups and they'll sit there and say, oh yeah, he's talking about my mother. Oh yeah, he's talking about my sister. Oh, he's talking about my aunt. See, we can always relate to everybody about somebody else. That's a defense mechanism again. Because I don't want to talk about me. I don't want to feel me. I don't want to be in touch with me. So I can always say, oh yeah, this stuff really relates to, my family, it relates to this situation, relates to that situation. That takes time also. So trust is a powerful thing. You have to be able to build it up. I remember one day, and I want to go back a few years, I was at an ACOA meeting over in Pennsylvania, and I was a speaker for the meeting for the night. So I was kind of talking, telling stories, doing, my story, and just going through the normal things I go through when I speak at a meeting. And I was talking about my childhood and some of my issues with my mother, some of the things I went through in my childhood. And in the middle of my talk, this lady in the back of the room stood up and started screaming at me and yelling at me. In fact, I'll be honest, she scared me half to death. I just sat there. I don't care what you say. I hate my mother. I can't stand my mother. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll hate her to the day I die. I don't want to hear this crap. I don't want to hear this stuff. And then she stormed out of the room. Well, I stood there for a minute, kind of shocked. I finally just said, well, thanks for sharing. I continue with my story. But I realized today where she's at. I understand, and maybe she needed just to get that out, but that's where she's at right now. She's stuck in that victim role, that expectation role. If only my mother would have, basically admit to what she did, then I'll be okay. If only this would change, then I would be okay. If only that would happen, then I would be okay. Bottom line is building a support system, building people around you, building trust, building safety is a slow process and it takes time. And that's why I'm so grateful today to people in the ACOA programs, the codependency programs. They literally just invite people to come back. They don't push them. They don't try to make them do stuff. They're glad they're there. They listen and they allow them just to be there sometimes. And sometimes I just have to be there and listen. Eventually, I'll be able to become part of it. Eventually, I'll be able to form a family system with people. And I realize today how important support groups are. I look at many of my own support groups I go to as my family, my recovery family. They're a family in very many ways. And basically, I feel comfortable around them. I can trust. I feel good around them. And so as a result, that I'm able to look at things and learn new things and develop new things in my life. But that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time. And that's why it's so important to be able to look within your own self. But again, remember, I'm going to say this about 25 more times. This stuff, this growth process, this process of learning is a slow process. So take all the time you need for that education stage. Take all the time you need. And I'll tell you another funny story. A lady approached me one day after one of my lectures. She said, Vince, I found the magic program. I said, well, tell me about it. Well, I'm going to go away for 5 days, 5 intense therapy days. They're going to work on me around the clock, get all my core issues, and we'll find out solutions for them. I said to her, well, this 5-day program, how much does it cost? She said, $1,800. I said, come here. I said, do yourself a favor. Go on a cruise. Take the $100 and go on a cruise. But I hate to tell you this. You're not going to get all these things straightened out in 5 days. There is no magic formula, no magic pill, no magic situation. Life is not that way. Life is this ongoing process of discovering new things a little bit at a time. See, growth is not supposed to be quick. Growth does have some pain in it. You've heard the term no pain, no gain, and growing pains, going through transition, going through change, but you do it a little bit at a time. You learn a little bit more each day and grow a little bit more each day. And that's why building trust, building safety, connecting with people is a process we participate in a little bit at a time. And so those first 2 stages are very important. In short, in Italian say, take your time. Go slow. My father used to say, bien, a little bit at a time. And as a result, then, work at your own pace. Every one of us is an individual. Every one of us is unique. Every one of us has our issues. And remember, every one of us has our perceptions. I want to emphasize this because I've said this so many times. I could take 8 children from the same family, put them in 8 separate rooms, do a family history with each of them. I will come out with 8 different families. Every child perceives the family differently. So your perceptions are yours, nobody else's. And that's why I tell people in doing this work, don't go be asking your brothers and your sisters, even asking family members, because they're going to give you their perception. Every time I give a talk, every time I was in church when I was giving sermons, there's 100 people out there. There's 100 different interpretations because everybody looks at things from where they're at. They look at where things work for them. And that's the way it's supposed to be, by the way. See, it's not important whether your projections are right or wrong. They're your projections, they're your feelings, they're your thoughts, they're part of you, and they're the things that affect you in the course of your growth in life. So take your time, go slow, learn as much as you can, take time to learn things and be in touch with it. I even get a kick out of codependents and adult children when they interview therapists. You know, they come in, they want to know, who are you? Where'd you go to school? Who are you related to? How long have you done this? What color underwear do you wear? They want to know everything about you. It's amazing. It's like they're interviewing you for a master job. And so as a result, then they want to know everything. They also want to know exactly what you're going to do. I always tell them, relax, take it easy. Come to a couple of sessions. I often say, do make 2 or 3 sessions, and if it really doesn't work for you, that's okay. Then move on. Take your time. Check things out. You'll find out what works for you. And that's the most important thing. Again, just reiterating, remember, you want to build trust and be around people you feel safe with. Now, next week, what I want to do is I want to go into that 3rd and 4th stage, affirmations and self-parenting. I got to give you some assignments to get you ready for next week. And as I give you these assignments, they're pretty neat. I want you to try them. Now, please, I got to say this ahead of time. If you don't get them done by next week, you can still come to the lecture, okay? These are just suggestions. That's all they are. So take your time, all right, with them. Well, what I'd like you to do is to try something. Right? I'd like you to take your real family and put them on a back burner. And then visualize this. Visualize yourself getting ready to be born, and God says to you, I want to give you the opportunity to create your perfect family. I call it your fantasy family. I'm going to give you the opportunity to be able to actually create on paper your fantasy family. Your vision of your perfect mother, your perfect father, your perfect brothers and sisters, or you want to get rid of them, whatever you want to do. It's your fantasy. We have a hard time with this because we feel like we're being disloyal to our blood family, to the family we grew up with. Maybe you don't want to be the nationality that you are. You want to be a different nationality. Maybe you want to belong to a different culture. It's your fantasy. Do whatever you want to do. See, we have to allow ourselves to try this because you don't realize it, especially for codependents and adult children, because we think too much. When you go into the fantasy world, you actually are identifying your needs, not knowing you're doing it. And I'll show you that next week, because we'll talk about the fantasy family. But when you're done writing it, have some more fun. Rewrite it using your opposite hand. Now, your opposite hand is your child hand. But here's the key. Don't overthink this, okay? Say a prayer, write down your fantasy family, and put the pen down. Don't go over it 93 times and try to get it perfectly, okay? Secondly, when you write your inner child version of it, just let it flow. Doesn't make a difference what it looks like. You might as well see it anyway. So as a result, then just let it go, because we have to learn to be a kid. We have to learn to let our little child out. So that's your child hand. Your other one is your adult hand. And we'll talk more about that next week in the connection with it. But the concept is you want to be able to allow that flow to come out of you. And you're going to feel some definite feelings while you do it. It might be frustration. It might be wow, because our adult and our child have a constant conflict with each other. And we'll talk about that when we talk about self-parenting, because they refer to as the higher parent, or the adult, and the inner child, the child. These are all parts of us on the inside. It's exciting. Yet at the same time, we don't know how to handle this. I look at my grandson, he did a picture of me one time when he was about 2 years old. Well, the picture was a bunch of, marks and things and everything else, like stick man. He said, Papa, that's you. Oh, I said, oh, thank you. It's beautiful. Up on the refrigerator it goes. It's amazing some of the stuff that ends up on that refrigerator. Because kids have this imagination. They can look at a bunch of straight lines and see things we'll never see. So we'll talk about that next week, about the first 7 years of a child's life. How a child is a sponge during those first 7 years. How a child literally picks up everything, its concept, its character, its traits, everything is sponged into that child by the time it's 7 or 8 years old. That stuff stays with them for the rest of their life. But then they have to learn how to deal with it, how to handle it, things to do with it. So there's things we can do with that. We'll talk more about that when we get into a lot of the self-parenting techniques and concepts and things in that direction. I'd like you to try something else also. Before you go to bed tonight, I want you to stand in front of the mirror, look yourself directly in the eye, and say to yourself, I'm special. And say, don't say I, say, you're special, you're beautiful, and I love you. When I really have an adventure, go up to the mirror and kiss yourself goodnight. Make sure you brush your teeth first, though. This might sound hilarious, it might seem strange, but it's called mirror therapy. Very powerful. Again, we'll talk more about that. But try it. And when I really have some fun, when you wake up in the morning, go look in the mirror and try saying the same thing. You might get scared, but that's okay too. But you got to laugh a little bit too, because laughter is part of life. It's a big part of the process we go through when we do this stuff. So then again, what I want you to look at is, I want you to try something else. I want you to ask 2 people that you really feel comfortable with, that you feel safe with, to write you a letter of affirmation, telling you everything they like about you. Just tell them, be honest, but make sure there's nothing negative in the letter. Everything they like about you. And when they're done, have them give the letters to you. Have them even seal them. You can open them at a later date, and I'll show you how to do that. Also, what I'd like you to do too is to sit down and write yourself a love letter, telling yourself everything you would like about you. Now, this is scary, I know it, but sometimes it's hard to do, but try it. You know, when you first do it, you might have just a little bit, but as you try it, it gets better and better and better as you go along. Again, this is part of the excitement of this recovery process of what I refer to as the self-parenting concept, you know, and the affirmation concept. It's almost like I have to re-brainwash myself to think positively, because in growing up very many times, I was programmed to think negatively. And that negative thinking, or we call stinking thinking, is part of our life and part of our journey. Therefore, I've got to change the tape. It takes time to be able to do that. So we'll give you affirmation techniques and ways to do that. We'll also teach you the self-parenting concept, be able to work on that. And then later on, in the next set of lectures I'll be doing, I'll talk about the 12 steps of self-parenting, help you with that process, show you how you go through it. But this is exciting, because it helps you begin to look at things in different ways. Now, with the letter you write to yourself, your love letter, if you want to have a real adventure, put it in an envelope, address it to yourself, and mail it to yourself. You will finally get a love letter in the mail. Isn't that wonderful? I'm waiting for one for a long time. I finally got one. It's amazing, isn't it? These are things we have to learn how to do as adult children and codependents, because we're tough. In fact, I joke about this, but it's not a joke, okay? Adult children and codependents, because a lot of times we're external, not internal, we are really good at running companies, at functioning and getting things done. We're very productive people. But it's funny sometimes how we're able to get things done, but our own life, we kind of screw it up a lot. At the same time, we're able to function. So I'll tell you a story. A lady one day called me up. And she was telling me she was going to commit suicide. Told me she was in the 14th story of a building, and she had decided she's had it. She can't take this anymore. She's going to jump out the window. She don't care. She don't want to be here anymore. Well, thank God she called and we talked. So I did something just out of, you know, it's a God thing, I know it. I said, look, do me a favor. Let me ask you a question. I said, do you happen to be an adult child of an alcoholic? She said, how do you know? I said, well, I'm just asking, you know. She said, yeah, my father was an alcoholic, and my uncle abused me. And I'm tired of all these people that do things to me all the time. That's why I'm doing this. So I got to tell you something. Please don't take this the wrong way. Please don't jump out the window. She said, why? Because you're an adult child of an alcoholic. You won't die. We hit an awning on the way down. You'll be a paraplegic for the rest of your life. See, it never works. I'm sorry. At least I got a laugh out of her, and she didn't jump out the window anyway. But the bottom line is, it's true though. It's almost like I'm going to settle this and I screw it up. You have a tendency, when it comes to internal stuff, you have a tendency to just screw it up a lot. When it comes to external stuff, we function and perform. I've said it over and over again. Adult children of alcoholics and drug addicts can run companies and run businesses. For their own personal life, And so it's really important to learn that self-parenting concept. But it comes from the fantasy family, identifying our needs, then learning how to get those needs met, and how to be able to develop that kind of being around safe, healthy people that will help me in this process. And so try to remember, learn as much as you can, get information. Secondly, over time, in God's time, not in your time, whenever you're ready, try to get into some kind of a support group. Even if you go into it for the wrong reasons, and I did, I went to Al-Anon back in 1969 so I could save the pastor I was living with. And those people were wonderful people, don't get me wrong. They told me to work on me. And I told them, I don't need any work. I was okay. I was fine. That's a scary word, by the way. If you're fine, it means you're in trouble. It means you're frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I can't say the first word. The bottom line is you're fine. So basically, we have to learn, relax, take it easy. Education, support system, and then we'll spend a lot of time on this concept of affirmations and affirming, and also we'll spend some time on the self-parenting process. Because to me, this is what the core that we need to do before we get into the actual inner child work and move in that direction. So take some time, try some of these exercises. Believe it or not, they can be a lot of fun. Try them to the best of your ability, and then see what happens with them. I'll guarantee you one thing, you'll definitely get in touch with feelings, especially when you read letters from other people telling you all the wonderful things they see in you. And we've been playing that beat-up game on ourselves for a long time. Maybe now it's time to stop, stand still, and begin to see the beauty inside of each and every one of us. Try to remember, we're all God's creatures. We're all created. We're all here for a purpose. There's a beautiful person inside each and every one of us, and we have to go on the journey of discovering it. So I want to share a prayer with you tonight based around what we talked about today, and then we'll continue this process of the recovery process as we continue this series of lectures. Close your eyes, relax. Let us pray. God, we come before you tonight as your family. We come before you tonight asking for your help, your guidance, and your direction. Teach us to look within ourselves, just to see your beauty inside of us. Teach us to be people of healing and forgiveness. Teach us to realize the fact that when we hold on to stuff, it'll destroy us. It won't hurt any, it won't help anybody else. Teach us, please, deep down inside, not to be afraid, but to realize that you'll be there with us. You'll be guiding us. You'll be strengthening us. You also will be sending us messengers to help us on this journey. We also thank you, God, for all the people that have gone before us, those who have gone through their struggles, those who have paved the way for us here today. We thank you for them. We ask you to bless them and guide them. Please allow them and their spirit and their love to be part of our journey today. Help us on our journey. We are your people. We're embarking on a journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, self-growth, and self-love. And teach us with your help and your guidance. We'll be able to look within our own selves and see the beauty that you have created in each and every one of us. Just to accept things that have happened to us in life and teach us to try to turn them into what I refer to as healthy moments. Moments that will teach us about ourselves as people. So God, thank you. Thank you for our journey. Thank you for one another. Thank you for the gift of life. We pray and we ask this in your name. Amen. In this spirit, I'm going to ask you now to unmute yourself so we can say the we version of the Serenity Prayer together.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.